right, cool. All right, welcome to Rapid Fire Manufacturing. Today I'm with Mark Hillenburg. We're at Kensington. It's a collective manufacturing company. Mark, we've interacted through LinkedIn and super excited to have a conversation with you. So
yeah,
thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you today. I didn't remember it till you shared when you walked in how we originally connected those dots through Heaton and Turner Mining Group. We share an office there in Bloomington, Indiana, so pretty neat. It's a small industry. LinkedIn's a fun space to play in.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to start off with your story. How did you get into manufacturing and walk us through that entire process?
Yeah, so my manufacturing story, I've been in the industry for about 20 years now, and it started with my father. Had a small business, entrepreneurial drive and spirit, but didn't know what I wanted to go do. I knew that the large corporate life wasn't the path I wanted to take. And my father was a drag racing hobbyist and kind of a gearhead and building race engines and race cars. But when he started having kids in the family, had to professionalize his approach, but always had a natural engineering knack and mindset. And he ended up becoming a CNC machinist and running a large CNC machine shop for the Department of Navy in Southern Indiana. And he knocked on my door one day when I was minding my business and said, "Hey, let's start a machine shop together." And said, "Well, I don't even know what that is, but it sounds like a small business." And next thing I knew, I was going to my parents' detached garage every day, which was about 700 square feet, not 700,000 square feet.
Nice.
Yeah. And we machined our first job on a Bridgeport mill, which I think is a great manufacturing story in itself.
He bought it.
He had a manual lathe and a manual mill already in his garage, just being a hobbyist and a machinist. And we found a local job and had some billet aluminum and started machining parts on the Bridgeport. And then we made our first CNC investment in a Herco Hawk 5M and got another bigger job, and we delivered that job, and then we took that money and bought another machine. And 2 or 3 years into it, we had 4 Herco mills jam-packed in a 700 square foot garage. And I would go to work every day by myself with my dog, and I'd stand in between the 4 machines and spin circles and make parts and deburr parts. And I learned during that time that machining is hard, and that I wasn't as good at it as I needed to be. And I still tell people to this day, I don't claim to be a machinist. I know enough to be dangerous, and I can crash a machine with the best of anybody. But it really is lessons I learned early on that I've been able to take with me throughout my manufacturing journey after that gives me a technical foundation and understanding and appreciation of the battles that are fought on the shop floor every day and how hard some of this really is. And now we own businesses that are making a complexity level of parts that are well beyond what we were doing in our little bitty shop in my parents' garage. And I think that even deepens my appreciation. And so after doing that with my father for 5 or 6 years, my parents were nearing retirement. I had just gotten married, had my first child on the way. One-man machine shop has some ups and downs to it. We had some good years, we had some bad years, and it's like, I think we both need to find something more stable. So we ended up liquidating our assets, or essentially selling the equipment in the book of business. I started doing sales and business development for that business that we sold that to, and brought the book of business with me. And that's where I started doing sales and BD in aerospace and defense for, small to medium-sized machine shops, and had a couple stops along the way. And then in 2014, I was minding my business at MSP Manufacturing in Bloomington, Indiana, which is where I lived at the time and now live again. And I got recruited about a shop in Elkhart, Indiana called Kensington Aerospace. And I originally accepted a VP of sales position up here. I sat in that seat for about 2 years and then got promoted to president and CEO in 2016. It was an operational and financial turnaround in 2016 when I stepped in, but was blessed to build a great team around me, and we successfully turned that business around and really took it through some bright spots in its story. And unfortunately, things didn't end the way we hoped. During that time, we took the company to market. We had some great valuations for the business, but the owner ultimately decided not to sell, and we kind of found ourselves misaligned on the future of the business and the path forward. And so I left Kensington in January 2019 and went on to be CEO of Kim Metal Technologies, which is back in Southern Indiana. And then shortly after that, ended up as president of a couple Injet Aero locations in Terre Haute and Dayton, Ohio. And, after reflecting and spending 10 years as a kind of more of a private equity backed executive, just felt like that wasn't the right fit for me and who I am as a leader. I'm a Pareto guy, 80-20, and I spend about 80% of my time focused on the people and the culture and how can I build the best business possible for people to come work at. And I felt like that element was often missing with my ownership or the private equity backed nature of those businesses and wanting to buy it, create value, and then sell the business 3 to 5 years later. I think I always had more of a long-term thought process and focus. And while I was successful in generating the financial results, it felt like an element of it was missing. And it really came back to the people and the relationships. I love the relationships I have with customers, employees, and vendors. And I want them to know when they're doing business with us that this is for decades, not for a couple year windows. And so I decided to leave InJet on my own and, spent some time doing some business consulting and coaching. And really during that thought process and the time, stayed in touch with a partner, Matt Ritchie, who's now my partner at Collective Manufacturing Group. We worked together at InJet and decided we wanted to go do something together. We were both looking at acquiring our own machine shops, but felt like together we could go acquire multiple machine shops with a long-term investment horizon and plan to be the stewards into the next generation of manufacturing. And there's a lot of great businesses out there in the space that were founded. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of succession plans in place or who's going to take these facilities over and for the right reasons. And so, really the approach at Collective is to be good stewards of these businesses moving forward. And, we launched this in 2024. We did our first acquisition in August of 2024. We acquired Simpson Kovacs in Wallingford, Connecticut. Great business that had been around for 50 plus years, had 3 owners that had been trying to sell the business for 2 years. And we finally, we found each other and were able to give them a successful off-ramp, and they were retired in 3 to 6 months after the transaction. That business is chugging along. It's going to have a record year this year, and great group of folks, small shop, 15 employees, but man, it's just a great culture and something we're really proud of and things we want to embody and take with us in other shops. And then shortly after we did that acquisition, I'd kept my ear to the ground on Kessington, and unfortunately it had fallen back into operational and financial despair. The owners of the business ended up defaulting on the debt, and we were able to find and locate the banking and the lender, and we essentially acquired the business through an Article 9 private foreclosure process. And 30 days after it closed its doors, we rehired the employees and started operations going again. And next week, we're actually celebrating our 1-year anniversary at Kessington, and we're really excited about it. Again, this business in particular has a really special place in my manufacturing journey and my story. It kind of launched and propelled my career, broadened my horizons, and I learned a lot during my 5 years here, both as a VP of sales and a president CEO, and that was kind of my first tenure into that level of role and the weight of that and the importance of it. And to now own the business is kind of like a dream come true. And again, my primary focus is how do I build the best business possible to retain and attract the top talent in the industry, in the area. And we're having a lot of success with that right now, and we've got a great foundation to build upon, and we're excited for the growth that's ahead of us over the next couple of years. And then after we acquired Kessington in November of last year, we did our third acquisition in 9 months in Columbia, Connecticut, called Columbia Manufacturing. We acquired that business in April of 2025. And so we don't plan to buy anything else for the foreseeable future. Our original target was 1 to 2 businesses every 12 months. We acquired 3 in the first 9 months, so we were way ahead of that pace. And, Kessington, because it had closed its doors, there was, a bit of a heavier lift from an operational perspective to get the foundation secured and so that we could go build on it. And, but we're really proud of the work we're doing. We think we fill a need in the manufacturing space for these great businesses that shop founders and owners have and that are looking for an off-ramp for a retirement, but don't have a generation in their family to step in and take it. And we think we're a viable option for those shops, and we want to be the stewards of those businesses. We don't change the name. We think there's value in the name recognition and brand recognition, but we also want to tie them into something that's bigger and a family of companies that so that, those key stakeholders, the owners and founders, the customers, the employees, and the strategic partners know that if it's a collective manufacturing group company, these guys are in it for the long haul. And Mark Hillenburg and Matt Ritchie are guys that they can count on doing business with for decades, not for a couple year window. And we think there's that message, and that thesis has been very well received across the board with those stakeholders. And I think we find ourselves in a pretty unique position here, and we're really excited about it. So
that's awesome. One thing that really stands out, you talk about people and culture as being one of the most important things. How do you build a good culture?
Yeah. I think it starts first and foremost. You have to honestly look at yourself in the mirror as a leader oftenly and frequently and build a team around you that's going to hold you accountable too. Not just do what you ask of them or demand of them. It's create a collaborative environment around you at the leadership team level. And my job is to share the vision and, again, focus on creating an environment that people want to, first and foremost, stay at. Number two, those that aren't here already want to come be a part of. And so I spend a lot of time and effort in thought just thinking about that. How can I make Kessington, Simpson, Columbia the best place to work and become the employer of choice or the partner of choice for our customers? And, I think I shared with you earlier, I have 5 kids. And so a simple way to think about it is, would I want my kids to work here? And if I can't confidently say yes to that, then I have to look at myself in the mirror and say, what am I not doing, or what do I need to do better to create a business, a building, and an environment that kids would be excited to come be a part of? And so I think it's easier said than done. I think it's easy to get bogged down in numbers and finances sometimes. But I think if you continually invest your time and emotions and your money into the facilities and the cultures and the people, the talent retention and traction becomes a lot easier. And I've had a track record of success with that, regardless of my stops along my manufacturing journey. And it's something I take very seriously. And I want to be viewed as a transparent leader, but also somebody who has empathy for how hard what we're doing on the shop floor truly is. Having been a machinist for the early part of my career, I've cut my hands up. I've deburred parts. I realize how much it stinks sometimes. When you're machining Inconels and some of these exotic grade alloys, how tough some of that is. And I'm not overly technical. And I think having the realization of myself of what my strengths and weaknesses are, and knowing where my gaps are, and trying to surround myself with the people that know the right machine to buy or the right manufacturing approach. I don't get overly involved in the details. I try to stay, at the 30,000 foot view and think about how can we make this business better, as a whole from a culture perspective, and something that people are just so excited to already participate in or come be a part of. And I think by doing that, I've not found myself too many times saying that I can't attract or find the people I need to grow the business for the customers when they require it. And I think that's a unique position to be in, and one that I really enjoy. I take pride in the people and the culture.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Now, when you're looking for, I guess, new talent, how do you do that? Because that's something I know a lot of people are like, well, we don't know where to start.
Yeah. So word of mouth or Matt Ritchie, my partner, and I, we like to work with people we like, know, and trust. The benefit for both of us, having been in the industry for as long as we've had, there's a lot of great people in this space. No matter what stops I've made along the way, for good and bad, one consistent thing is there's been great people every step along the way. And I once heard a customer say, we build big planes, but it's really a small industry. And I think your reputation and your relationships go with you moving forward. And, it's always funny how those dots end up connecting. And I think we find ourselves in a position where people want to come be a part of the businesses we're buying at the collective manufacturing level, because they see the value in our approach, our long-term investment horizon, and they know that they could come be a part of something that's special and different that most people aren't doing in the space, and feel like they can be there. That can be the last stop in the road for them in their career, and they can feel really excited and good about it. And so we're having a lot of success just with our networks and word of mouth and people, the way we're approaching this and what we want to do with these businesses, that we haven't ran into too many hires or strategic hires where we didn't know somebody already, or we were able to get connected with somebody already within our networks and folks wanting to come be a part of what we're doing. And so we hope that momentum only continues to grow and that excitement about what we're doing. And we think it will. So
that's awesome. Yeah, reputation is everything. I mean, what's the saying? It's takes years to build trust and seconds to lose it. So being a consistent person, a person with integrity.
Yeah.
Stick with that.
And those it's so funny how it works out. Some, you may have ran into somebody who, I have a situation right now where I'm working with somebody who was an employee at a location I was working with, and he was on my leadership team, and, paths ended up taking us different directions. And now he finds himself at a customer of mine. And so there's this natural connection of, hey, he knows me, I know him. And again, I like to do people with I like, know, and trust.
Yes.
And he knows that if he has a problem and they need a solution, he can confidently bring it to my team. And if we tell him we're going to do something, we're going to do it. Our say-do ratio is extremely high. And building that trust is really important. And it goes with you at different stops along the way. And I think that's one thing, I'm not saying I've been perfect, and I'm sure there's some out there that maybe their experiences weren't what I would have hoped or thought. But for the most part, I think I've done things a certain way that my reputation and Matt's reputation is going to carry forward with us and what we're doing at Collective. We're seeing that with customers and employees wanting to come be a part of what we're doing.
One thing that we messaged, you said vulnerability. What does that mean to you? Why is that so important as a leader to be able to share the vulnerabilities that you have?
Yeah, I think it comes back to what I was hitting on earlier. I think being able to literally look yourself in the mirror day in, day out, and what you're good at, what you're not at. I think being empathetic with challenges in these businesses and the shop floor, the answers don't usually lie in the spreadsheets. A lot of the environments and the ownership I've worked with in the past, they're always looking for the answers in a spreadsheet. And data is really important, don't get me wrong. And that portion, the analytics, I think matter. But the answers are usually on the shop floor. And there's usually people on the shop floor that can help you identify and solve those problems easier and faster and cheaper than trying to come up with it on your own in a spreadsheet. And I think just being a real person as a leader, I do monthly all hands here, and I try to just share what I'm struggling with, what I'm excited about in the business, what our challenges are as a business. I try to be openly transparent. And again, just most of my conversations on the shop floor, though, aren't about work or business. Hey, how's your wife doing? How's your kid doing? How was his travel baseball tournament last weekend? How'd they end up doing it? I try to just show that I'm not a robot. I'm a real person as well. And I share my struggles and we celebrate our wins. And, I think just being real and transparent with people throughout the facility, I think goes a long way, and that they feel very comfortable coming up and talking to me about personal or professional issues. And it just creates the ground at which you can cover at the pace you can cover when you have that type of environment is game changing in these businesses. And it just unlocks a lot of potential. Because it comes down to relationships and trust and collaboration. And you can't put silos in the business. And we have titles for our leadership team, but it's like, that's not really what's matter. We really are honest with ourselves of what our strengths and skill sets are. If this is what needs to be done, it makes the most sense for this person to take the lead and us to support. And that's the beauty of small business is it's like, there's so much freedom to operate and flexibility. And, I was an athlete growing up in high school and college. And to me, like business it's a team sport. Yeah. And it's like you figure out what play you need to run and what positions everybody needs to play to go be successful. And I really love that part of it and that team building and that team approach.
Yeah. And I like that too, because you can find someone you had as a wide receiver is actually better quarterback, and you see the potential in people.
Yeah. I mean, I have stories of people I've worked with, and skilled, talented people typically can go do a wide variety of things. Just because they've been in finance their whole career, they could go be successful in operations with the right mindset and the right environment. And I like working with talented people who share the same vision, and we're all in it together. And I just love it. I love that team component of it, and realizing I can't do any of this on my own. I can't have any success without a great team around me.
Yeah.
And that's top to bottom throughout the facilities. And so it's really fun. And when you're in the trenches with people, you just develop a really special bond and relationship where there's this deep, meaningful layer of trust. And if we get the real issues out on the table and we address them, it's really common in these businesses that, everybody knows what the issues are, but you end up talking about the same issues 2 or 3 years later. Yeah. And so, we utilize EOS or traction as an operating system, and that keeps us, helps from a visioning perspective and keeping alignment throughout the business on what we need to go accomplish this quarter to keep us on track for our 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year goals and initiatives. And, so there's systems and processes we incorporate into that culture and that team building environment that just really unlocks the full potential for a business. And I enjoy that.
That's awesome.
Really love it.
So one thing I always like to ask people is, if you could go back in time, what would you tell yourself about manufacturing?
I think the biggest learning for me coming up on 20 years in my space is be patient, because a lot of times you're learning things that you don't realize you're learning in the moment. It's really funny when you go through a tough time in a business or a tough environment, tough issues you're trying to solve with a team, and you're doing the best you can. And sometimes you feel like the needle's not moving, and it can be really defeating. But then you find yourselves 2 or 3 years down the road, and maybe it's at the same company, maybe it's a different one, and you find yourself with a new set of issues or problems, but you can take those lessons learned during that time and apply them. And there's been so many instances in my career where I felt like I knew what the solution was, 100% confident, and things didn't play out the way I would have thought or hoped. But then they come to work out and play out even better than you could have imagined. And it's like these lessons that, I didn't realize that's what I was learning in that moment by having to work with that person or collaborate with that team. It's so relevant now where I find myself 2, 3 years down the road that I can take this, and now this is really no longer an issue. The solution is pretty apparent. And so just have the awareness that a lot of times you're learning things you don't even realize you're learning from a lessons and a knowledge perspective, and be patient with that. I know early in my career, I wanted certain things, and I had my plan and how I wanted to work my way up. And I thought, and I would say I didn't dream big enough or have big enough plans based on, and things have worked out even better and bigger than I could have imagined. And with the people I've met and the relationships I've formed, and again, those lessons along the way. And I mean, go back to the beginning with my father. It's like I was learning things in that 5 years that in the moment, I was like, man, I'm tired of machining parts. I'm tired of going home dirty with metal chips all over my carpets and my cars. But it's like so many of those things I learned in that 5 year period, I didn't realize I was learning in the time, that have been extremely applicable to me at different stops along the way. I think be patient and have the awareness that you're learning things you don't realize you're learning in the moment, in challenging moments in particular, that you'll be able to look back in 2 to 3 years and identify what those learnings were. Be patient with that. So.
And I feel like you probably had moments where you didn't realize, you just recalled situations. You're like, oh, I guess I know how to solve that because of those lessons that you learned early on.
Exactly. It's just you develop this toolbox that you're accumulating these different tools that you don't even realize you're like, what am I going to need that tool for? Yeah. And then surprisingly enough, you work out 2, 3 years later and you're like, well, I can use that tool now. I know somebody, or I know what system or process we need to implement here to be successful on this. And that's the fun part, I think, is like, man, it's just like always be learning and be patient with it, and have those reflectionary moments with yourself to think about what you've learned and how you can apply that to your current set of issues or problems or dynamics in the organization you're with. So
that's awesome. Final question to the next generation. How should we operate to draw them in?
Yeah. Again, for me, I always take it back to the environment and the cultures you're building. Again, I ask myself simply, is this a business I would want my kids to be a part of, and would they be excited about it? And, unfortunately, I think manufacturing is still trying to shake the stigma of dark and dirty and, and it's not that. It doesn't have to be that.
It's just out there. It's definitely not that.
Yeah. And it can look and feel and present itself again with the technology advancements and the pace at which things are evolving and changing, that I don't see how a young person couldn't get excited about this. And again, creating a facility that's collaborative that utilizes technology and trying to find new and better ways to do things and solve challenging problems, I think is a very rewarding lifestyle and work environment. But getting that message out there with, folks such as yourself with the podcast, and there's other ways that we can spread that word and highlight the facilities such as ours. And there's a lot of great ones out there about what we're doing and how we're doing it. And getting that younger generation, excited about the future of manufacturing, because it's an exciting time to be a part of it. And even in our small pockets of business in the aerospace and defense sector on engines and wheel and brakes and things of that sort, I mean, there's a lot of demand for products, and we got to figure out how to make more faster.
Yes.
For our customers to be successful. And those are fun problems to try to solve together and collaborate on. And so I think sharing the story and getting the story out there. So, yeah.
Exactly. Well, for those of you watching, check out the website, Kensington, and Mark.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
I'm glad this worked out.
Yeah.
Thank you.